Welcome in, everyone, to the Game or Die podcast. That is right. We're back for the final episode of the podcast for 2025, which is always Game of the Year. Now, just a quick aside here. Oh my gosh, I've been so busy, so crazy busy with life stuff that I haven't really streamed over the last month and a half or so. And it's really been a real crazy time to the point where I haven't really played a whole lot of games either up until the last maybe couple of weeks, about 2 weeks or so, right around Christmas time, because it's New Year's Eve and I wanted to do at least one last stream for the year to kind of close out 2025 and also talk about some video games, talk about how this year, which was a crazy year in video games, came to be. So we're going to talk about all the normal stuff that I do for Game of the Year. If you're new to the channel, new to the podcast, new to Game or Die in general, on the Game of the Year podcast, I, number one, go through all of the games that I played over this year, everyone that I beat anyways, everyone that I completed, everyone I saw the credits to. And then we go through the top 10 games of this year in my own personal list. So it is a little bit different. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff happened this year to the point where I did not get to play as much as I really, really wanted to. What's up, everyone? Welcome in to the Game of the Year podcast. So this is not going to be any gameplay. This is actually being recorded for the podcast as well. So it's not going to be super interactive, but I am going to try and make sure that I kind of monitor chat. But normally the way that it works is I just talk about all the video games that I've been playing over the course of the year. So we're going to start off with the first game that I played back in January 14th is when I completed it. It was a brand new game that actually kind of got suggested to me. It was one of my first, I guess you would call it sponsored games where I got to play it or got the game for free from the developer and played it on stream. And I got to beat it on stream all the way through in a single sitting, which was really, really fun. It was Pirates VR Jolly Roger. Now, this was almost a year ago. So I'm trying to remember all of this, but man, I had a really good time. If you know me, you know that I love VR. VR is one of my favorite things in the entire world. I play VR as much as I possibly can. If I can get the headset on and just immerse myself into a video game, oh my gosh, it is the greatest thing in the world. And one of my favorite things in the world besides VR and video games is pirates. So why wouldn't it mesh together perfectly well? Well, it totally does. Pirates VR Jolly Roger is a game that doesn't take too long. It's first person and it's mostly environmental puzzles. So you're trying to get together certain keys to unlock doors, and you got to go find the things to unlock the puzzle to unlock the key, and that's kind of how it goes until the very end. Not the very end, kind of around the middle point. There's combat involved, and it's not crazy combat for the first part, but I actually struggled. I think I remember dying maybe 2 or 3 times on the first combat encounter because you're in a dungeon setting with a bunch of cells and they're all empty and you're walking around going, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, skeletons appear. And man, I hate skeletons. Skeletons are one of those things that just drive me nuts. I hate them. They're super creepy, especially in that type of environment. So I died because I couldn't really understand the combat mechanics of it. The gameplay itself is actually really fun, but you have to hold up this lantern and charge the lantern like with a charge shot, kind of like Mega Man, and then you shoot it out, and then the skeletons kind of like stumble back, and then you have to do that 2 or 3 times, as I remember, to actually kill them and destroy them. And because this was a brand new game, it was just released. There was no, day one patches or updates. It's by an indie developer. There was a couple bugs. And so I definitely remember struggling a little bit with that. But It actually was a really fun story, and that's what I got engrossed into. I'm a big story guy. As you'll hear throughout the rest of this podcast is, oh man, if you got a good story, a good hook, I am there for the long run. It's funny, I actually think about this a lot as I play games and talk about games over the year. I really try and balance out both gameplay and story. There's a lot of people who are one or the other. Most people are like that. I'm not like that. I really do enjoy and care about stories in games. But if the story isn't good, I can always get on board with good gameplay. If the gameplay isn't good, I could still get attached to the story if the story is good. So it really does need to be a good balance of both. And Pirates VR Jolly Roger was actually a pretty cool, unique story. And it was really fun because at the very end, I beat the last boss, I believe, or I was at the last boss. And one of the developers actually joined into the stream and was talking to me throughout that last final little section. And it was just so fun and so cool. So that was the first game, and it was a VR game, you know? So, like, we're starting off the year fairly strong in the first 2 weeks, being able to finish a game, complete it in 3.5 hours on stream was really, just like a good way to start the year. Then I immediately jumped into a game that I've wanted to play for years, but I never got around to it for whatever reason. And it's a game called Moss Book One. They like added that after the fact because when the game originally came out, which is again a VR game, it was just called Moss. And Moss is about a little mouse named Quill, or I believe it's Quill, and you are viewing this as like almost a diorama. And that's one of the coolest things about VR is when you jump into a diorama setting in VR, it feels like you're looking at a play set. I mean, I loved playing with action figures back in the day when I was a young kid, and emulating that in a sense is just such a unique and uh, interesting idea, and I get on board with it every single time. Every single time a VR game gives me that diorama set piece, I lose myself in it. It is so immersive. It's so cool, and Moss is another really interesting, good story. You think, oh, I'm playing as this little mouse with a like a sword. You don't think that you're going to really enjoy it. It kind of seems a little bit maybe goofy or childish, but it's really not. And the story itself is actually very well told, really interesting, and also a lot more mature than you would think it would be. So that was really fun. I really, really enjoyed that. It also helped as I was playing through that game that I got a couple raids on stream. And if you don't know what a raid is on like something like Twitch, it's where someone finishes their stream and instead of just stopping the stream and having all the viewers just go, well, that's it, back to my normal life, you kind of dump them into another streamer's stream. And so I got rated a couple times by a few people and, got a really good sense of new viewers and what they liked. And they really liked Moss. And so they were giving me a couple little suggestions for maybe some of the puzzles that I was struggling with. And it was just so much fun. So I really did enjoy that. Moss itself is a unbelievably fun game, so much so that I did end up playing the second one. I'll talk about that in just a second. But for a 4.5 hour experience over the course of, I think, like maybe 2 streams, I really enjoyed it. Again, another VR game starting off the year strong, completing it on stream, and I really, really had a good time with it. I was so excited that I ended up buying the game, pretty much the second game, sorry, because I wanted to tell this quick story. When Moss came out, it was an Oculus VR exclusive for a while. And back in, I think, 2019, 2020, the Oculus store had this weird glitch for Moss where it was free. And I'm sure you know that like there are X pages or Twitter pages back in the day where they just like show glitch deals or super saving deals and stuff like that. And so I did come across that and was like, dude, 5 minutes into the like weird glitch deal, it got taken down. So I was able to get it for free, but I never ended up playing it. And I don't know why. Mostly because I was really more on the fact that I'd rather have it on Steam. I'd rather not have to deal with the Oculus setup and their software. So I was like, oh, I'll just play it some other day. Well, I ended up just buying it on Steam because the second game did come out and I bought it in a bundle. So I bought Moss Book 1, which is the first game, and then Moss Book 2, which is the second game. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that happened. I'm trying to remember all this stuff. This was about a year ago, so forgive me with that. Now, in between Moss 1 and 2, I ended up playing another game because of Game Pass. Now, a lot of people have a problem with Game Pass, and I don't know why. I honestly think Game Pass is one of the greatest deals of all time. And I say this every single time I talk about Game Pass. If you're a kid of the 80s or 90s, like I am, I'm 40, and I remember back in the day, after school or on a Friday night or during the weekend, we as a family would go to Blockbuster. And I would always rent a video game on like Friday night and have it for the weekend and return it on like Sunday. Well, that's what Game Pass is. Game Pass is the modern Blockbuster of our time. And it blows my mind that people don't understand this because Blockbuster allowed you for $5 to rent a video game for 2 or 5 days, depending on how much you wanted to spend and all that. But you could rent a single video game for a few days and then return it, right? Sounds pretty cool. And it was, man, back in the day, everyone loved Blockbuster. Everyone would go. That's why it's a cultural touchstone for so many people. But now that they went out of business, they don't exist anymore thanks to like Netflix, right? There was this big empty, area for renting video games. Yes, you have things and services like GameFly, but nothing really that big. No one really rents video games anymore. But when you've got a service like Game Pass, where you spend, let's say $30, which is what I subscribe to, the ultimate in Game Pass, you get a full month, unlimited checkouts of a huge library of games for an entire 30 days for $30. That's $1 a day, basically, right? To play any game out of like 400 on Xbox and PC. And most of them are day and date. Brand new game drops, bam, you have it available to you. You don't have to spend that now $70 for a video game. It's insane. It's a nuts deal that people just are rebelling against for whatever reason. I'm not really sure. I don't get it. Yes, there are some times that the releases aren't very good, but who says you have to subscribe every month all year long, right? Subscribe when you want to, unsubscribe when you don't feel like there's any value there. So something like, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, a game like Oblivion Remastered come out and bam, I have it available not only on PC, but also Xbox. And not only that, my wife can play on her Xbox and I can play on my PC, and we're only spending the single purchase for the Game Pass subscription for that month of $30. Both of us are able to play Oblivion Remaster, I think, was a little bit lower. I think it was a $50 game. But still, $50 for 2 copies of the same game, that's a pretty good deal, right? For $30. So Game Pass is rad. So as I was streaming every single day or night, every single night for the majority of this year, I have to find video games when I complete when I complete a game, I have to find a new one very quickly within less than 24 hours because I also have a day job. So, I was searching and I found a new game that came out, Lonely Mountains Snow Riders. Now, Lonely Mountains is now a series because there was an original game called Lonely Mountains Downhill where you are a bicyclist and you start at the top of a mountain and you just ride your way down. The art style is very minimalistic. It's a very low polygon, which is kind of all the rage right now, or it was maybe about a year or two ago. And it was a really Zen-like game where you can kind of just get in this flow state and really just have a good time and not really worry about anything, kind of shut your brain off because the game is a little difficult. There are a lot of obstacles, you build up a lot of speed, and you don't just like pick yourself back up if you crash your bike and continue on. You start from checkpoints. And out of a, let's say, 4-minute bicycle ride down this mountain when you're flying through, there's a checkpoint maybe every 30 seconds to a minute. So there's only a handful of checkpoints. And if you biff it, which you will during the game, that 4-minute, track down this mountain takes 15, 20 minutes sometimes if you suck like I do. So that was kind of interesting. Now, they came out with a second game in the series now, and it's Lonely Mountains Snow Riders. And you guessed it, it's snow-based, right? It's a skiing-based game. Not even snowboarding, skiing. And man, I love this. It was so enjoyable to play, and we had a really good couple conversations with some of the channel regulars, as I like to call them, where we had some really not just fun conversations on stream, but also a little bit deep. That's what happens on this channel a lot, is I'll be playing a game and someone will just ask a question. Maybe they're having a bad day, and I like to kind of try and get them to open up a little bit and see if I can brighten their day somehow. And then we kind of just get to talking and get into some pretty deep and heavy conversations every once in a while. I try to keep it light, but So I played Lonely Mountain Snow Riders. It's a 3-hour game, so I think I almost finished it, I believe, in the one stream. And then the next day, I kind of ended it very early in the stream and then moved on to something else. So, Snow Riders, or Lonely Mountain Snow Riders, is basically this skiing game where you go down a mountain on skis, and it's very relaxing. The snow sound effects are some of my favorite sound effects in video games. A lot of people love blowing up and destroying things, but man, oh man, it is just so enjoyable to hear that crunching of the snow. I used to live in the mountains where it would snow pretty heavily during the winter. And man, I miss that. I miss that so much. It is like the one bummer thing about living in Tennessee is we really don't get snow in the winter. But for those few years that I lived in the mountains, man, it was just so enjoyable to hear that crunching of the snow, especially when it is dead silent in the middle of the night and you're walking outside for whatever reason. It's one of those sound effects that can just bring me ultimate joy every single time I hear it. And so when I get a snow game, I get really excited because I hear that sound effect and it just takes me back. So Lonely Mountain Snow Rider is a really fun game. It is very basic, very easy for the most part. I beat it in, about 3 hours, and we just had a really good time on stream with it. So I really did enjoy that. And it was on Game Pass, so I didn't even have to pay anything for it. I think it's like a $15 game, but hey, that's another $15 that I don't need to spend because I have the subscription. Game Pass rocks. So I beat Moss Book 1, then played Snow Riders, and then I jumped back into Moss Book 2. Moss Book 2, from what I remember, was a little bit less interesting, which most sequels tend to be for me. I love a series. I don't think everything needs to be a series or a sequel or a trilogy. Like, remember when everything was a trilogy for a while? But book two ended the story of Quill, the mouse, and it ended it really well. But I just think the level design was a little bit more, I don't know how to put it. It just wasn't as interesting to me. I think they focused way more on trying to have the combat be more creative, but in that creative combat arenas that you would get kind of put in, it just ended up, not feeling as special. It felt like they focused on the wrong things for the sequel. So I did end up liking book two, but the first game kind of holds a better and more special place in my heart. I really enjoyed it though. And it's a bummer too, because that company, man, they kind of leave it open for a third game with a new protagonist, but they said that they were going to do something else. And they did. They released a game this year. A few months later, after I completed Moss Book 2, they announced Glass Breakers, which is like this D&D style type of chess card based game, which doesn't interest me at all, and it's multiplayer only, and I just went, that's not for me, sorry. So that was a little bit of a bummer. I was really bummed out with that. And then we got something that I was super excited about. I was following this game for quite a while. Sniper Elite Resistance, which is, I believe, Sniper Elite 6. They've put out a lot of Sniper Elite games, and if you don't know what Sniper Elite is, it's a third-person, over-the-shoulder shooter game where you're in World War II. And World War II is one of my favorite things in all of history. I love World War II history. I'm a World War II history buff. Happy New Year. How's it going? Welcome in. So I really like World War II. And so when Sniper Elite first came out on the Xbox 360, I wasn't super into it, but I had one of my friends come over to my house and download the demo. And he's like, dude, Ryan, you just got to play this game. And I went, okay, what is it? It's a sniper game. And I'm not a sniping fan. Like, I don't like snipers. When we would play Halo in LAN parties, everyone would run for the sniper rifle, right? Everyone runs for the sniper rifle. I never did. I don't like sitting there and camping and like waiting for my one shot. I like running and gunning. I like having assault rifles and Uzis and things like that where I can pray and spray. But for whatever reason, unfortunately, I was just never a sniper rifle fan. And every video game that has a gun in it, like the big gun, the special gun, is always a sniper rifle. So my friend was like, no, Ryan, you just need to play this. Just try it out. And I went, all right, cool. I'll try. And so I did. And guess what? I loved it. And the reason why I loved it is because of the slow motion kills. So the original Sniper Elite games had you like perched in an area and you would just pick off like an enemy or two. And you would kind of have to wait for them to get set up where there was a good, clean shot. And when you pull that trigger, everything stops. Time stops. And that bullet travels out of your barrel of the gun all the way across. And you're like 200, 300, 400, 500 yards away from people. And oh my gosh, it's just traveling, not even yards, meters, because it's all taking place in Europe. So you're traveling and you're watching this bullet just travel the distance of, 400 meters away. And it hits them in the skull or in the eye or in the chest. But it doesn't just shoot them and you go, oh, a bullet went into that person. No. It goes full-blown X-ray mode. And that X-ray, where it goes and turns their face into a skull, and you see the eyeball, and that bullet not just pierces the helmet, but goes into the brain, and you see the brain kind of fluctuate with the ripple effect, or their eyeball pops. And it is so satisfying. It is one of the most satisfying, just type of moments. That is what that game is. And they've made several sequels of it. And so this year, Sniper Elite Resistance, which I believe is 6, came out. And unfortunately, I did not care for the story. And unfortunately, the story is literally the same across all of the games. You are this generic character who moves through these missions, which are really cool. The missions, the gameplay, the firing and shooting, everything about that game is so stinking fun. We got a lot of people in the chat. Hey, welcome in. Merry Christmas, because I didn't stream on Christmas, but also Happy New Year, everyone. It's only 9:30, so we've got a few hours until actual New Year's here in Tennessee. But if you're across the world, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. If I didn't get to say that in the Discord, but anyways. The gameplay of Sniper Elite is fantastic across the board. Every single game, it's beautiful, perfect. The levels are designed in a way now where they're just like these massive maps that you got to make your way across. And the gameplay of Sniper Elite Resistance, I had a blast with. Oh my gosh, over the course of like, I think 2 or 3 streams, we just played it from like, for like 2 or 3 hours straight, without even taking a breath or a bathroom break. I just loved it. It was so much fun. So I had a really, really good time. The only unfortunate thing is the story. It's super generic. You are this boring character, has no personality, and you have to stop the Nazi super weapon. That's it. That's the story of every single game. And with the other games in that series, you are playing the same character moving across multiple years and multiple campaigns of, World War II. This one, however, you are a completely different character. I think his name is like Harry Stinson or something stupid like that, like super generic. And he is the most bland British character of all time. One of the cool things with the original character in the game is, I can't remember, his name's like Hans something, like not Hans Gruber, but it's like Hans Franzenstein. And you are a German, but you are an American German, and you are fighting the Nazis. So like you're a traitor to your own people, but they're Nazis, so why wouldn't you kill them? It's a really cool environment and story, but they just do a poor job with the actual like plots. And that's just kind of how it goes. So it was kind of a little bit of a bummer, but hey, whatever, right? And then the new character is just garbage, just the work. I hated him. You never want to have your player, if you're a designer, you're making a game, you never want to have the player hate the character they're playing. And that's kind of how it felt for me. So all the levels were super fun. All the missions were super fun. All the shooting and everything like that, and sneaking around and trying not to die, because man, if you get heard, like your gunshots ring out. There's an echo. And there's other snipers in the level, like scoping out certain areas that they know people would be at. So if you see like a little bit of a flash of a sniper scope in your scope, oh, they see you, they spot you. So you got to run and duck and hide and, find another place. It's a fantastic game. You can see and hear that I am super excited about this game. It's just the plot and the main character sucks so bad. So, yeah, it was, again, another Game Pass game. And so I didn't have to spend money on it. I completed it within just, let's see, about 10 hours. It's a 10-hour game. I had the subscription already, so I didn't pay anything extra. And I beat that. And it was just a fantastic game, just a really crappy character and plot. So, yeah. And then I actually got to play this next game very early on. I got to try this game out. I was in the Discord for this game and got an early release to do a video on. I recorded myself playing through the entire game, and it's a game called Cold VR. Cold VR is really interesting because it is basically taking what a game called Superhot did years ago. If you don't know what Superhot is, it was like this phenomenon in gaming back in like 2015, 2016. And it's basically this game where you are in this weird abstract matrix style world. And when you move your body, time moves. And when you stop, nothing moves. But it was never actually that. And this is the thing, like you hear the tagline of when you move, time moves, but it's always a very, very, very slow time progression. It's ultra slow-mo. All right. That's really what the mechanic is. It's not, if you don't move at all, like you don't get to just look around and view the environment when people are coming at you. No, they're moving at you no matter what. It's just they're moving very slow so you can kind of move around. It's like the newer modern X-Men movies. Remember like First Class or Days of Future Past? And they would always have like their super cool hero scene with Quicksilver. Quicksilver scenes are always like the most memorable because he's moving super fast and everything's in slow-mo. But thing is stuff is still moving. Time is still moving. That's what Superhot is. And then the tagline for Cold VR is basically that, but in reverse. And I went, wait, what? And I always had a really hard time understanding what the game was. And then I got to play it. And it's basically Superhot. Like, not even in reverse. It's just Superhot with a blue color scheme instead of red color scheme. But that's not a bad thing. It's interesting, too, because Superhot was a flat screen, regular, 2D. I say 2D, but I mean like non-VR game, a regular video game. And then they came out with Superhot VR. But it's not just like a port in VR. It's a full-blown new game dedicated solely to VR, exclusive to VR, and you don't move your character. You turn and twist, and you get to view your environment in 360 degrees, but you actually cannot physically move your character. You just have to shoot. And so all these characters are coming at you and all that stuff. And then they came out with a third one. I think it was called Superhot Control-Alt-Delete. And that was like a roguelike. Like, oh, man, I hated that game. I had such a bad experience with that game. But Cold VR is pretty interesting. It's pretty fun. And I always liked the color scheme of blue and white. And that's what this is. The game is super abstract. Like there's no real textures on anything. Everything is a very low polygon. And you're running around these environments. And what really is cool about Cold VR is they actually did a bunch of FMV cutscenes for this. So they have like a whole story in the FMV cutscenes. I don't think it works extremely well, and you kind of tell the twist immediately. But for an independent solo developed game, and I mean solo, it's a single person making this game except for the VR cut or the FMV cutscenes. He did everything. And man, it inspired me. It made me want to develop. I went, man, if this guy can do it, I think I could do it. I've developed before. Maybe I should take another crack at it. And I started. I got a little bit into development, and then kind of everything went haywire for the rest of the year. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But Cold VR is a really interesting game. Support indie developers. We'll talk more about that later on in the podcast. But oh my gosh, it is something unique. And we don't get a lot of uniqueness in video games anymore. It's all, sequels and remakes now. So it was really fun to be able to play something like that. And then during the early month of March, I ended up playing through one of my favorite games of all time. A Kingdom for Keflings. And if you're watching the live stream right now, it's up in the right-hand corner playing. A Kingdom for Keflings is an old Xbox 360 game from around 2008, I believe. And this game holds such a special place in my heart. If you've watched me play it, heard me talk about it in the early episodes of the podcast, we're on episode 97, I believe, of the podcast. Back in like episode 8, I think I talked about A Kingdom for Keflings. So Kingdom for Keflings is basically this god sim where you are a giant, and it used your Xbox 360 avatar. Remember the avatars when the NXE, the new Xbox experience, when they replaced the blade system from the Xbox 360 and went with that Metro design that they were starting to try and work in? Well, I'm sorry, that was the third iteration of the operating system for Xbox 360. It was the Blade system originally with the launch 360 in 2005. And then in 2008, they switched over to NXE, New Xbox Experience. NXE, New Xbox Experience. And that introduced avatars, which were these really crappy animated characters that were supposed to be like our persona or avatar for the whole Xbox ecosystem, and it was just garbage. Like even back then I hated it, and I hate it even more now because Rare made those, and Rare was just like, they made GoldenEye 007, Perfect Dark, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Banjo-Kazooie. They made all these amazing Nintendo 64 games, and when they got bought by Microsoft, they made Perfect Dark Zero and Cameo and Grab by the Ghoulies, and then they just were on avatar duty for like a decade. It was just terrible. So I have a big sore spot about that. But A Kingdom for Keflings is made by Ninja Bee, and Ninja Bee just is like this small little developer, and they made this really cutesy, soft-spoken style type of game. We now, in modern times, would call it cozy games. I'm not a big fan of that term, cozy games, but it's a huge genre in indie gaming right now. And so I was really like just kind of taken aback by this game when it came out on Xbox 360. So I've told this story, so I'll try and keep it short, but I've told it a couple times on the podcast whenever I bring up this game. In 2008, when this game was released, I was living in Denver, Colorado, and I was 1,200 miles away from any family or friends. It was a real lonely time for me. I loved it. I loved being out there, and I wanted to be out there, and I'm really glad that I did move out there for a year, but it was really lonely. And so on Christmas Eve, I have this tradition that I've done most of my life. This year I didn't get to do it, unfortunately, and I try and do it pretty much every year as much as I possibly can, where I stay up all night on Christmas Eve playing a video game and beating a video game. So like a 6, 7, 8 hour, 10-hour video game or whatever, I just sit there and play through. I picked up this game on Christmas Eve, and I played it all day long on Christmas Eve, all night long into Christmas morning. Around like 7 o'clock in the morning, I went, okay, I'm done. And I finished the game. I had a blast with it. It is such a fun little cozy game that you just can turn your brain off to. Kingdom for Keflings is in my top 10, I believe. I haven't looked at my top 10 for quite a while. You can go back to episodes 2 and 3 of the podcast, and I actually recount my personal top 10 video games of all time. And that was back in 2019. So it's due for maybe a secondary look and maybe reordering some stuff, moving some stuff out and putting some new stuff in. But Kingdom for Keflings is so fun. It's this game where you basically are a giant and it's resource management. So you're in this like little forest area, and these little keflings, or just humans, let's just call them humans, and you're a giant. So these little humans come out and say, hey, help us build a city. And so you say, all right, I'm going to pick you up, this little human person. I'm going to put you at a tree, and I want you to cut down trees. That's your job. That's your only job, is just cut down trees. So any tree you see, any tree you walk across, any tree that's near you, you cut it down. So they do that, and they just build up this stockpile of lumber. And then you take another kefling and you go, okay, I want you to just be a traversal person. I want you to take this log that this lumberjack character is now just chopping down a ton of trees. I want to take that fallen log and transport it over to the workshop. And you just do that over and over again. And what's really cool about Kingdom for Keflings is there are no enemies. There is no antagonist. There's no ticking clock. There's nothing other than you trying to achieve building out the city for these keflings. That's it. That's the only goal of the game. And you have one of the best soundtracks in all of video games to do it to. Man, it is so cool and unique. And if you've ever listened to the podcast, or you listen to it now, I went back and reverted back to the original theme of the Game or Die podcast, which is A Kingdom for Keflings. So, and again, if you're on stream right now and you're watching the stream, you can kind of watch the first stream that I did of that first game. It crashed a couple times because I was emulated on 360, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But man, A Kingdom for Keflings is so good. Then I moved on to Quackshot. Quackshot is a Sega Genesis game. Yes, I play a lot of old retro games as well. Last year, 2004, I played way more retro games than I did this year. I barely touched retro this year. And it's just because of life in general. Life has just been really hectic and crazy, and I haven't had a lot of time this year like I thought I was going to. I've never been more busy with work in my entire life. I basically, without getting into a bunch of details that are unnecessary, I've just been way too busy with work to play games for the most part. And when I do play games, they're modern games or VR games. So I didn't really get to touch retro games like I normally do. I usually try and balance it out. But Quackshot is an old Sega Genesis game starring Donald Duck. And Donald Duck is basically on a quest to find this treasure that he's heard about. And it's just him, and he's got a plunger gun. That's the main mechanic of Quackshot, is a plunger gun. And you shoot the gun, jump up on the plunger tip as it like sticks to the wall, and you can platform. So it's a platform action shooter. It's a really fun game. And they just don't make them like they used to. Excuse me. My throat might get a little bit scratchy, and that's because we've been dealing with building out the insulation in the studio, which is really, really nice. It's we just completed it a couple hours ago, and man, I couldn't be happier. Anyways, back to Quackshot. It's an old Disney game on the Sega Genesis. It's a platformer. They don't make them like they used to. It is just unbelievably fun. I played it a few times on streams over the last couple of years, so I don't need to go super in depth into it, but that was a really fun game. Then we got to the Midnight Walk. Now, the Midnight Walk is not only a flat screen regular video game that anyone can play, but it is also VR compatible. And I played it in VR, and I had a blast with it. The Midnight Walk is not just an interesting game, but it is also a beautiful, breathtaking, haunting video game. It's basically a darker Tim Burton style Nightmare Before Christmas game that follows the antics of your character walking down this lonely road in this weird other world. But there is another character that's kind of like helping you walk down this lonely road called the Midnight Walk. And the character's name is Pot Boy. Pot Boy is made to be a mascot. He's very similar in look and style to Sackboy from PlayStation, the Little Big Planet series, right? But Potboy is claymation, and the entire world and everything about this game is in claymation. And you would think that wouldn't work very well, but man, if you go back and play games like the Neverhood or Skull Monkeys, by the way, I actually know the developer, one of the developers of Skull Monkeys, and man, he's a really cool dude. Um, but the claymation aspect of the Midnight Walk is what kind of drew me in. But the story, man, it is dark and twisted like a Tim Burton game or story. And it is just so interesting. I loved every moment of it. The only one thing is in the very, very beginning of that game, when I was starting that stream, I got so stuck for like 15 minutes on literally like the first minute of gameplay. And it just did a really bad job of making you understand how the inventory worked. So the inventory was like, oh, yeah, you got a key. Oh, I found the key, but how do I use it in this door? Because I know that the key needs to go in the door. How do I get it? And I was pushing every button. I had like comments on stream. You got to pull the key out. And I'm like, I'm trying. And so I had to turn the game off, restart it, do it again, and spend like another 5 minutes fumbling around. And somehow I just used the key. And I went, okay, cool, whatever. And we moved on. And you just never really have to do that ever again in the game. So it was just really, really weird. And that was the only time I got frustrated with that game. And then I think at the very, very, very end, I had a weird glitch, but it was only for one thing. I died, restarted, and then moved on. But yeah, the Midnight Walk it's one of those games, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, where it might not be the best game, but it's a game that spoke to me. And I value that much more. And I see games that are trying to evoke a certain style or emotion to the player. And when they do that and they do it well, that means so much more to me than a big blockbuster game like Call of Duty or whatever ever could. So I always hold those in higher regards, and remember that when we get to the actual top 10 list later at the end, because I have to have something that speaks to me personally that I would put on a top 10 list, or, say this is a great game, as opposed to just saying, yeah, it's a game that is really well made technically, or it's designed to appeal to the biggest demographic. But when it appeals to the smallest demographic, which is me, that means so much more to me, of course, right? So that's kind of my just initial thoughts on a Midnight Walk. Then we got Doom: The Dark Ages. Now this one's pretty weird because I was never a Doom guy. And go read my thoughts on the website, my review of Doom: The Dark Ages if you want a little bit more, but I'll expand on that in a moment. Last year, I played through the entire Doom series for the first time. Let me say that again. I played through the entire Doom series for the first time last year. Sure. Back in the early 90s, when Doom came out, we had a PC and I played a little bit of it, but I grew up, in a Christian home, and Doom is all about the devil and hell. And so my parents put a kibosh on that right quick. I was not allowed to play Doom. And when I would hear people talk about it over the years, I was like, man, really? Why does everyone hold Doom in such high regard? I never got it. I always liked Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein 3D was always my game that I played back in the early 90s. My parents were fine with me killing Nazis, but Doom and going to hell and fighting Satan and all this with demons, just no thanks. No, I was not allowed. It's really interesting because when you kind of actually look at what the game is, you're going to hell to fight demons and kill Satan. So, there's that. But I never played Doom. Really. I played like E1, M1 like 50 times, over the course of my childhood, but I never really got into it. I was never allowed to play it, so it was always at someone else's house, and I just never got into it. Then last year, when I started streaming every night or multiple times per day, I was like, dude, I got to play some VR. I haven't played VR in a few months. So I ended up going, you know what? Here's a cool little challenge. Let's play through Doom. I haven't played through Doom ever. And instead of just playing it on the regular computer, let's play it in VR. Because there's mods to play Doom in VR with the brutal Doom mod, which is just making it way gorier and way more modern with like better graphics and stuff like that. It's still all pixelated. Old school Doom is it's a lot more fluid. So I ended up playing that and it was a blast. And I ended up playing Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 3, all in VR last year. So I played through all the Doom games. Oh, and Doom 64. So Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 64, and Doom 3, all 4 Doom games in 1 year. Now, and in VR, all of them were in VR, and it was awesome. So coming into 2025 with a new Doom game, I was like, all right, cool, let's do this. Because back in 2016, when they redid or rebooted Doom to Doom 2016, I did buy it and play it, and I played it all the way through, and I was like, it's fine. I really didn't like the glory kills. I thought they were super boring and just like I saw everything the game had to offer within the first 20 minutes, right? It's just the same kills for the entire game. I just got really, really bored. So this is what I did. I played Doom: The Dark Ages all the way up until the final night of the stream. I was like maybe 3 or 4 hours. No, I take that back. I was like 6 hours away from completing Doom. But my wife had to go to the airport early the next day around like 5 o'clock in the morning. And I start my streams at 11. So I had a 5-6 hour, window to play Doom. And that last night, a mod came out for Doom: The Dark Ages to play it in VR. If you don't know, there's a guy named Luke Ross that does VR mods, and he made a mod for Doom: The Dark Ages. And so I got it, I installed it, I got it all set up, and we played the last final 5-6-ish hours of Doom on stream in VR. And I was probably the first person to do that on stream in the world, because that mod dropped and within 45 minutes I was streaming. Like I got it, I installed it, and clicked stream and go live. So I was like the first one to do that. No one else did that until like later on the next day. So, and then they were making videos and all that, and I'm just not that type of person. Unfortunately, Doom: The Dark Ages is not that great. It's another it relies way too heavy on certain aspects, like let's say there's this color scheme, the parry system, where projectiles are being shot at you and they're color coded. So anytime a green projectile shoots at you, you can parry it, which means you like block it and then time slows down and then you can go in for the kill. Now that sounds cool, but in reality, that makes it so that every enemy, you just wait for the green shot, and it takes away a lot of the agency of the combat. It takes away a lot of the urgency, and it just ruins the gameplay, unfortunately. So I was not happy about it. I had a good time. I think it's a solid, I don't do ratings on video games, but I would say it's a solid 7 out of 10. Like it's not great, but it's not bad. It's just fine. It's okay at best. So yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a bummer, because I had all that momentum of being able to play through all of the Doom games, last year. And then this year, a new Doom game comes out. So I was all excited. And unfortunately, it's just not that great. So yeah, I was kind of a little bit bummed out about that. Then we went back and we played through a game that I tried to play through when it came out. And then last year I tried to play through it and I kept having a bunch of issues. And this is Star Wars Squadrons. Now, I love Star Wars, or I used to. I used to be a huge Star Wars nerd. I love Star Wars. I remember going to see the special editions back in 97 when they released in theaters. I was like the prime age for, I was like, what, 12 when those came out? I was like the prime age for Star Wars in the 90s. And they released all the Star Wars action figures again. And like they were just like bombarding children with Star Wars. Now, back when in 97, it wasn't pop culture anymore like it is now. Everyone loves Star Wars, or they did a few years ago, right? I think the Disneyfication of Star Wars kind of has, especially like the last 3 or 4 years, has really turned a lot of people. But dude, back in 2019, 2020, dude, everyone loves Star Wars. When The Mandalorian, came out a few years ago, everyone loves Star Wars. It was pop culture. It was cool to like Star Wars. Back in 97, it wasn't. So I was a nerd learning about Boba Fett and the Slave One and Shadows of the Empire, read all the books and everything like that, Kyle Katarn. I ended up playing a ton of Star Wars games back then, and I love Star Wars. All that being said, a few years ago, I think it was in 2021, they came out with Star Wars Squadrons, which is basically like the old school PC games, Star Wars TIE Fighters, or X-Wing versus TIE Fighters, or for Nintendo 64 kids, Star Wars Rogue Squadrons. It's kind of the similar thing. And what Squadrons does is basically take you and give you two characters to play as. One on the Rebel side, one on the Imperial side. So you get to play in a X-Wing and a TIE Fighter. And you're playing two different characters throughout the game. It's really cool. I loved it. So it was really cool to also know that they developed it for VR. There's an exclusive VR mode that you can play that same game that everyone can play online, or play, and they have online capability too, or they did. It's kind of, I think, busted nowadays. Like with every multiplayer game, I don't know why people still allow multiplayer games to have, private or don't have private service and all that stuff. Welcome in. What's up, Shadow Wizard? Happy New Year. We're still 2 hours away from New Year's, so it's only 10 o'clock here. But yeah. So we were playing through Star Wars Squadrons last year, right before we moved. I made it Game of the Month, I believe, last year. And unfortunately, I had to stop because there was so many crashes. The game would just always crash. So I wanted to play through it, and I was like super big into VR this year again. So I did a lot of research. I did a lot of soul searching and web searching and all that stuff. And I finally was able to mod the game a little bit with certain like INI file fixes and things like that to be able to stream and play in VR all the way through Star Wars Squadrons. And it was rad. It's such a bummer that these companies don't take risks anymore, because Star Wars Squadrons is a good game. The storyline, even for the most part, is good. I think the only issue I really had with the game is there is certain characters that are just awful and you don't care about them at all. And like I was saying earlier, if you want your character or the character that you're helping to just straight up die and fall off a cliff or blow up, like, that's not good. You don't want to write a character that your player or your viewer hopes dies, right? If they're a protagonist. So that was like the only real issue. And then I think the only other issue that I had was the game is just the missions are really long, and the checkpoint system is not very good. So you would have these checkpoints that would just take forever to get to. And like the missions are like 30, 40 minutes long, and the checkpoints are like 15 minutes in. So you get like 1 or 2 checkpoints per mission, and they're like super far away, and you're having this big dog fighting, in the sky. And it's super fun, especially in VR. Oh my gosh, it is incredible. But it's just not, it just, if you die, which you will, it's kind of a bummer. It kind of takes the wind out of your sails a little bit, having to replay and listen to dialogue over and over and over again. So that was my only big issue. But for an 11-hour game, like Star Wars Squadrons has a lot of content. It's got really good gameplay. And again, in VR, being able to sit inside a TIE fighter and look at all the knobs and buttons and pipes and tubes and everything, and be able to see the big circular windscreen that you're looking through, like it feels like you are a Empire pilot, and man, it is just so cool. I loved it. I cannot say enough good things. I really hope that the industry changes over the course of the next year or two, and I think it is going to. I think we're seeing a big change. It's just steering this massive multi-trillion, like it's almost like a $1 trillion industry at this point. You're seeing this huge ship having to change and adjust course, and it's just going to take a while longer. But I have hope. I'm very hopeful for video games in 2026, coming into 2026, because 2025, we started seeing some changes, and it's a good thing. And we'll talk about that at the end. So after all of that, back in June, we got the Switch 2, and I bought it. I was really excited. I wasn't excited for the hardware. I never really am anymore. Hardware, it means nothing to me nowadays. Back in when I was a kid, when I could get the Super Nintendo, and upgrade from the original Nintendo to the Super Nintendo, or get a Sega Genesis and be able to play Sonic the Hedgehog on it, or Kid Chameleon, like that was the bee's knees. It was the coolest thing. It was the must have. I gotta have this. Now it's like, oh, that game's on this exclusive console. It's an exclusive to the console. All right, fine. I guess I'll buy it. And that's what I feel about the Switch 2. Now, I'm in a very unique position. I'm a very different position than most people because I have every hardware. I've had every hardware system and console that has come out, starting from the Atari all the way to the modern systems. I have every single one. I never play them because I emulate pretty much everything at this point because it's just way easier for streams instead of hooking up a bunch of old RCA cables and the signals. It's really, really difficult to get all those things hooked up. And especially because I do this for my job, streaming for my job, I can't mess around with my my setup as much as most other people can. So I have to have a stable system that kind of stays put. It has to be turnkey. So that's the kind of the bummer thing. But I do try to play retro games as much as possible still. But like I said, 2025 was a little weird. So all that being said, I was excited to purchase the Switch 2 for the upcoming games that were coming out. Mainly Metroid Prime 4, which we'll get to at the very end here. But when the console launched in June, they had two what they call SKUs. And SKUs or SKUs are basically like packaging products. So they had one which was just the system itself for $450. And for an extra $50, you don't only just get the hardware, the console itself, you get a pack-in game. And that game was the new Mario Kart World. So on launch day, I'll quickly tell the story because I don't think I told this story on launch day. On launch day, unfortunately, because we moved and I still didn't update every single thing that I ever had from our old address to our new address, buying consoles on launch or like pre-ordering consoles at launch are pretty much the worst thing in the world. It's like trying to buy tickets, to the Super Bowl or Comic-Con or anything. You know that trying to win your way to spend money, like for the chance to give this company money, just sucks. So I was up at midnight. I streamed that night and I saw people as I was trying to like finish up the stream going, oh, pre-orders in 5 minutes. I'm like, I wasn't planning on pre-ordering the Switch. I was just kind of going to get it when I get it. But I stream. I play video games for a living, game or die. Like, come on. Of course, I'm going to have to get this thing as soon as it comes out. So I ended up trying to buy the Switch. I was sitting there, refreshing every web page from Amazon to Target to Walmart to GameStop. I was trying to just get the system. Everything kept erroring out for like so many people. The time came and went, and I went, oh, well, whatever. And then I was laying in bed, and I saw a post on X saying, pre-orders are back. Go try. And I went, okay. So I opened up, and we have a Walmart near us, quote unquote near, and we're like half an hour away from Walmart, and that's the only store in a like 2-hour radius that we could buy something from. And so I basically was trying to get the system, and I finally got it. And I got the the Switch 2 with Mario Kart. And I was like, yeah, awesome. Because they did say Mario Kart is a $79.99 game. It's an $80 game. And man, what an insane thing that was. I don't think we need to go into that. I think I talked about it on the podcast back during that time, but I was super excited because I got it. Unfortunately, I didn't update my address from when we moved to our new house. So on launch day, and it wasn't even this launch day, because I tried to have them change it, because I saw that after the pre-order went through. A few days later, they're like, make sure your address is, correct. And I went, oh, it's not. It's our old address. So it says, click here and change it. I clicked there on the website. It's like, you can't update your address. Call us. I tried calling. They're like, sorry, we can't do anything. It was like this 5-hour ordeal of going and calling over and over and over again, into the point where it's like, there's no way for me to get this system delivered to our new address. They refused to do it. So on launch day, my wife had to go drive to our old house and pick up the Switch 2. And man, thank God for my wife, because I would have had a meltdown. I was also working that day, so I couldn't have done it. And man, it was just a whole ordeal. However, all that being said, I was able to get the Switch 2. I was able to play the Switch on launch day, or the Switch 2 on launch day, with Mario Kart World. And we had a really fun time. I don't hate the game like most people do. However, I think it's it is an awful reasoning for $80 to be the new price tag for new video games. I do think that they are going to walk that back. I don't think I've seen any other Nintendo game be $80. I could be wrong, but I think they really learned their lesson that no one's willing to pay $80 for this game. I got it for $50 because of the bundle. It just made no sense, but we played Mario Kart World. I think it's a fine game. It's a game I'll probably never load up ever again, unless I do a series, full playthrough where I play Super Mario Kart, Mario Kart 64, Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Game Boy Advance, right? Like, I'll do all of those, and then when we get to World, I'll play it really quickly and then forget it even exists again. Because it's just such a watered down version. And that's kind of what Mario Kart is. So it's not something that I really care for. I don't hate it, but it's just like they really dropped the ball, because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch, when they had the Wii U version, put some DLC out, which was kind of insane on the Wii U. And then we got the Switch version that just added all that old DLC plus all the new stuff. And they started adding in, what was that? All the different waves of DLC. Like that actually elevated Mario Kart 8 to the top tier of Mario Kart. So like Super Mario Kart 64, Double Dash, 8. Like that is it. That is the pantheon of Mario Kart games, because you get all those new courses, and some of the new courses are freaking awesome. So I really did enjoy that. So we played that. And then later on that night, because the Switch 2 was brand new, we were just going through the menu, and I don't know why this is a Switch 2 exclusive thing, but they added GameCube emulation to the Nintendo Switch Online, which is basically an expansion pack, which is their basically virtual console or just emulation. Virtual console is emulation. Switch Online Switch Online pack or expansion pack or whatever, it's just emulating those old games. So they have a GameCube, and you got F-Zero X, F-Zero GX, which is the GameCube F-Zero, Wind Waker, Zelda Wind Waker, and then Soul Calibur 2. So I ended up playing through Soul Calibur 2 on the end of that stream, and it was really, really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. And then after that, like a month later, back in July, I believe it was, I ended up finally getting access to the second Kingdom of Keflings game called A World for Keflings. Now, A World for Keflings is a little bit odd because A Kingdom for Keflings took place in one single setting. It's like a 10-hour experience or a 15-hour experience, and it's just really relaxing and fun. You don't really do a whole lot. There's a little bit of a story there. There's a couple characters that you play with, but there's not much there. A World for Keflings takes that gameplay and just gives you different settings and locations with different characters as well. So you start out in an ice world, and you're helping these two Eskimo brothers build out this ice world city for them. And then there's a dragon that comes in, and you have to shoo away the dragon, but the dragon takes the princess. And, it's just like they added a ton of story to it. And it works for the most part for what that game is. I didn't find it as enjoyable as A Kingdom for Keflings. Keflings 1. I'm just going to refer to it as Keflings 1. So A World for Keflings, Keflings 2, came out. And again, it's an older game. It came out in 2010. So 2008 for A Kingdom for Keflings, Kefling 1. Keflings 2 came out a couple years later on the 360. But it's never been on PC or on Steam anyways. So I was part of the beta testers for it, which was really cool. I got to play through that game multiple times over the course of a couple weeks before it got announced and put on Steam. And it's just really fun. Now, there are also DLCs to A World for Keflings, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But it was a really fun, enjoyable time. This summer, this whole year has been crazy. It's been a very, very sporadic, unenjoyable year for me. It's been a pretty bad year for me, to be completely 100% honest. There was a couple, gaming-wise, there was a couple highlights, and A World for Keflings was one of them because I never played through that game. I got to the very end. It happens quite often for me where I get to the very end of a game, and for whatever reason, I put it down, whether I just get too busy and I can't get to it and then I forget about it, or I get stuck on a final boss and I'll go, I'll come back to it, and I forget about it and, drop off. But I was at the very end and I never finished it. So I got to finish A World for Keflings this year, which made me really, really happy to say I've done that one too. So that was great. And then Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4, which is a remake of 3 and 4, just like they did with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 back in 2020. So I ended up playing through Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 because I played it in 2020, right before we moved out here to Tennessee. When we were still living in California, it came out right around my birthday. I think it was like September 12th. So I ended up playing that around my birthday and having a blast with it. I love the Tony Hawk series. I played it multiple times on stream, just to throw it on it to have a good time. And I really enjoyed replaying Tony Hawk 1 and 2. I have really fond memories of those original versions of those games on the PlayStation 1 and the Dreamcast and the Xbox. Not a lot of people know this, but they actually have a Tony Hawk game on the original Xbox called Tony Hawk 2X. And when that game originally came out, I didn't play it because I went, I've already played Tony Hawk 2. Who cares? Oh, they have an extra level. Ooh. But no one knows this. Tony Hawk 2X on the original Xbox is a remake of Tony Hawk 1 and 2. So it's basically the same thing as what we got with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 plus 2 in 2020, back on the original Xbox in like 2002. Crazy, right? So I played through the remake, the 2020 remake, and then I played through Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 plus 4. Now, I'm going to say this. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, not a game I really care for. I don't like the levels. I never really had enjoy. I think the Foundry, which is the original first level in Tony Hawk 3, is awful. It's the worst level in all of Tony Hawk. And the reason why is because it's so freaking tiny, especially for the third game in the series. You think, oh man, what are they going to do? I remember going, and I've told this story before, so again, I'll keep it short. I remember going to my cousin's house when Tony Hawk 3 came out. My cousin called me up and said, Ryan, you got to get over here. We have Tony Hawk 3. And I went, yeah. Well, Tony Hawk 3, I remember being a PS2 game, right? But it actually was also released on PlayStation 1. And he had the PlayStation 1 version. And man, it looks terrible. It looks awful. And that first level just left a super bad taste in my mouth. It's super tiny. It's not really a fun level to play. It's way too vertical. Way too vertical. It's really tiny and way too vertical. So I really kind of hated Tony Hawk 3. But it did have Bam Margera in it, and I was excited because I loved, CKY and Jackass and all that stuff. Then Tony Hawk 4 came out, and I remember playing through Tony Hawk 4 and having a really good time with it. It's a lot more open worldy and all that stuff, and it's an enjoyable game. But I don't remember finishing it. And so playing through 3 plus 4, the 2025 remake, I went, all right, cool. I'm going to finally play through all of Tony Hawk 3 and all of Tony Hawk 4. And I did, and I had a good time. There's a couple levels that kind of still suck. I think some of the layout is bad. I think some of the objectives are bad. And unfortunately, the game is developed by Iron Galaxy. I've gone on record a billion times saying I really don't care for Iron Galaxy's work. I think they do a pretty poor job. They infamously ruined Batman Arkham Knight, the third Arkham Batman game, for the PC version. They were the port house for that PC version, and it was so bad that they actually had to remove it and refund sales. It was just a bad thing. They're not a great developer. I try to be nice. I try to be kind, but man, at some point you got to call out people with their work. They just do subpar work. So Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 was developed by them, and they did a fine job. They did an okay job. I don't think it's great because they did take out the open world aspect of it. They took out a lot of what made Tony Hawk 4 that game. And so it was kind of a little bit of a bummer that they just added the original Tony Hawk 1, 2, and 3 time attack, or the time limit to it. You don't get to skate around all you want. There's a time limit, and it kind of kills a lot of the fun for it. Then I ended up playing through Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. Now, it's really interesting because this year they've gone on record saying, I believe it's Koei Tecmo and Bandai Namco are like in conjunction making these ninja games, like Ninja Gaiden 4. So they dubbed 2025 Year of the Ninja. And the reason why is because they put out 4 ninja games this year. They put out a remaster of Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma, I believe, or Black on Steam and Xbox. And Ninja Gaiden 2 is a great game, but I would have preferred them to do the first one because the first one is way better, in my opinion. Then they also announced Ninja Gaiden 4 that came out, I think, in October of this year. So there's 2 Ninja Gaiden games that came out. And then they did a third Ninja Gaiden game, but it's a side-scrolling retro pixel game. And it was like, wait, what? Like in the classic early NES-style Ninja Gaiden series, we got a new one. And that's called Ragebound. And then they also did a new game, a new Shinobi game as well. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But Ninja Gaiden Ragebound was the first game that I did not play on stream this year. Over the course of the last 2 years, I have played all my video games on stream up until, what was it, July, 30th or something like that. Like late July, I believe, is when I played Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, and I didn't play it on stream. And the reason why is because there's been a lot of health issues for me being in the studio where it's either too hot or too cold. And so I've been working, around the year trying to fix this situation. And it finally kind of like all came together today, which is really nice. But over the course of the last year, being in the studio, I've either been freezing cold or burning blazing hot, having to have heaters or fans going 24/7. And it's just been a very uncomfortable, uncreative environment for me. So when Ninja Gaiden Ragebound came out, I was like, dude, it's too hot in the studio. I can't stream this game because I have to have a fan. It gets like 90 degrees in this room. It's just a hot box. There's no air conditioning. There's no way for me to open a window because the window just would let more heat in. So it was just kind of a whole issue. Now, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is a freaking awesome game, and I love it to death, and I think it is amazing, and I cannot believe we got it. Like I said, it's a side-scrolling action platforming, hack and slash game of the original Ninja Gaiden series. And it is just unbelievable that we got that this year. And it's so fun. Then comes Donkey Kong Bonanza on the Switch 2. It's interesting. The Switch 2 did this really interesting or cool thing. I'm going to stop trying to say interesting so much. I noticed that I'm saying it a lot this podcast. Donkey Kong Bonanza was like the second game, and I was not going to buy it. I have no interest in Donkey Kong. However, I had a Switch 2 that was basically just collecting dust from literally the second day of it being out of the package because I already beat Super Mario Kart or Mario Kart World on launch day. And then after that, nothing. Right? There's no other games. They're all ports of games that I have on PC that I beat years ago, like Cyberpunk. Like Cyberpunk, I beat in 2021 in VR on my PC. I could go play that right now and I don't have to spend $70 on it. So like I wasn't going to just buy a bunch of games for my Switch 2. So once I beat Super Mario Kart World, like it just collected dust for an entire month. And then people were talking about Donkey Kong Bonanza, the new game. The next month, there's a new Donkey Kong game. And I went, well, last year, again, I did play Donkey Kong Country 1, Donkey Kong Country 2, Donkey Kong Country 3, Donkey Kong Country Returns, Donkey Kong Country, or Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, and Donkey Kong Country Land 1, 2, and 3 on Game Boy. So I played 8 Donkey Kong games last year on stream, and I had a really fun time with them. So why not play another Donkey Kong game? So I'm sitting there on my Switch 2 for the first time after a month, and I'm looking at the trailer, which I never do. I never watch trailers for video games. I don't need to. I've been playing games most of my life, pretty much all of my life, almost 40 years at this point, and I don't need a trailer to tell me if a game's going to be good or not. But I was so bored that I just watched the trailer and I went, "Oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is different. This is something new and exciting." So I ended up watching that trailer and going, "Oh, I see what they're doing. They made Super Mario Odyssey, but with Donkey Kong." And that's exactly what it is. And I even said that on stream like that night. I said, I watched the new Donkey Kong trailer, and Donkey Kong Bonanza basically just looks like Super Mario 3D, but with Donkey Kong. And come to find out later that, yes, it's the same team, same development studio that made they made Super Mario Odyssey back on the Switch in 2017. So I was like, all right, cool. This looks interesting. And the reason why is because there is deformation to the level terrain deformation, or terraforming, as a lot of people call it. I could not get enough of it. I ended up buying it, even though it was $70. And I went, oh, I don't know, man. $70 right now in this economy, with everything that we're going through, that's a hard thing to let go. But I ended up buying it, and I ended up loving it. It is a really, really good game. Now, if you watch the streams, if you've been in the Discord, or if you've read the review on gameordie.net, you know my feelings on this game. I love it, except for the ending. The ending gets botched, but not in the way that you think. A lot of people think, oh, it's, let's talk about Stranger Things for a second. It just got released. We haven't watched it yet. We're going to watch it afterwards, so no spoilers in the chat. But you see a lot, like the last few days, Stranger Things has been just in the news lambasted because they're botching the ending, of this beloved series. Same thing with Game of Thrones, like season 8 was just botched so bad. So an ending to some sort of media, like a TV show or a movie or a video game, can really have drastic effects. And so I always tell people, like, try and not pay attention to that stuff if you can. But man, during that final battle, like, they bring in, spoiler alert, for a game that came out like 7 months ago or 6 months ago or 5 months ago, whatever. They bring back King K. Rool, which is not a part of the game at all up until the very ending. And then you have to go battle him. And that battle happens 3 separate times. And each time they try and escalate it, but the battle takes like half an hour. So it's like 4 extra hours tacked on that you are traversing this new level with new villains and new boss fights. The boss fights take forever. And it's just so unenjoyable. But then at the very end, they make it so that it culminates in this just epic moment. And again, go check it out on YouTube. I made it as a short. I got so excited, and I made it so that I talk about how great the ending is. I'm like, this is how you do it. This is awesome. I'm just smiling ear to ear, like I'm having such a good time. And I'm like, this is epic. This is so insane for a Donkey Kong game to be this crazy cool. And then they just completely botch it by tacking on another superfluous boss fight that doesn't need to exist, doesn't need to be done at all. And it just ruins the ending so poorly. So yeah, I was super bummed out. But that game has so much to it. And for someone that is not me, I think it's game of the year. It's not game of the year for me, unfortunately. I think it just does a little couple things that irked me a little bit. I think especially that ending. But really, when it comes down to it, I think the biggest issue that I have is that it has way too many collectibles that don't really mean a whole lot. However, it does something much better than Mario Odyssey, where the collectibles and all that stuff actually have an influence on gameplay. Like your clothing that you purchase with all your stuff and all the collectibles actually does different things. You get better swimming ability or better pounding, terraforming ability or whatever. Or you get more money from pounding the ground. Like it adds on and gives an effect to your clothing as opposed to just being cosmetic like Mario Odyssey. That's one of my biggest issues with Mario Odyssey. So Donkey Kong Bonanza is rad. It's a really, really good game. It is the best game that I've played on the Switch this year. And I'll talk about more about that later. Then we get to a game, and I'm going to have to take a drink. You know what? We've been going for about an hour and 30 minutes. Give me 2 minutes for a bathroom break so that I can kind of get warm because I'm starting to get really cold in here. And then we'll come back with the other part of this podcast. Okay, we're back. All right. So let's talk about the next game on the list of what I finished and beat this year. This one's a big one. This one's a game that I never thought I would finish or beat. And it's a game that I actually played with a bunch of you guys. Minecraft. For a good chunk of the summer, we went through and we played, or on every Saturday, we would have Multiplayer Madness, which is my attempt at community online gaming. And man, I had a fun time with it. Over the last several years, since VR came out, I've dabbled in Minecraft, but I never got into like what the game entails, how to build things properly, and then also the whole story mode of Minecraft. Because a lot of people, when they talk about Minecraft, they just are in creative mode, where you have unlimited resources and you can make whatever you want whenever you want. But I've always played survival. And survival is how you really play Minecraft, where you have to survive, you have to scramble and look for resources, and you have to stay alive. I have always played Minecraft that way. I've never actually delved into or even played creative mode ever. So what I wanted to do with Minecraft was make it a community game. We've had a couple viewers over the course of the last couple of years go, hey, when are we going to play games together? Or, hey, are you ever going to play Minecraft? And I went, yeah, that would be really fun. I want to play Minecraft with you. That would be really fun. And I went, yeah, it would be. I've always had my own Minecraft server that I have in my server for me. And I went, you know what? It would be really fun to have our own community server that anyone can jump into at any time and play. So we did. And I built out this server and I said, all right, I'm going to spend a couple streams kind of learning how Minecraft works again, because I haven't played it in years and I really don't know what I'm doing. So anyone who wants to help me, come help. And man, we had such a cool time. We had a whole party of like 4 or 5 people at a time joining in. And what we did is we had the spawn point and we built out a little community center in the spawn point, town hall, if you will. And then what we did is, after I learned how Minecraft worked, especially in VR with all the mods that I had, then I went, okay, I'm ready to play Minecraft from beginning to end, starting with nothing and going and getting to the end, which is beating the Ender Dragon. So what I did is we actually set a course in one direction for 2 days of in-game playtime. So the sun comes up, sun sets, sun comes up, sun sets. And by that point, however far we got, and we went pretty far, we found a spot to kind of build our home base, and that was our home base for the playthrough base. And then we just started playing Minecraft, and it was so much fun. Digging down and finding all these caves and mines and different biomes and settings and building out all this really cool stuff to the point where we finally got into the Nether, which is like the other dimension. And when you get into the Nether, then there's a whole other section. And we built a little Nether base and all that. And I learned that, oh, you're not allowed to sleep in beds in the Nether because it blows up. So like the first time I went, okay, we built a little home base and I built out like 3 or 4 beds so we can all sleep in it. And then I slept in it and just blew the whole base up. And I didn't realize that happened. Like that's the cause of it. So I built out the base again, built all the beds and went, okay, cool. Let's go explore, come back, sleep in the bed and blows up again. I'm like, what's going on? So I had to find online, someone like posted the same thing. Why is this happening? Finally got an answer of, oh, it's because you're not allowed to sleep in beds in the Nether. So, all right, okay, cool. But man, that was just so much fun, and especially in VR. Again, VR is just incredible. I just have such a fun time with it. So, all in all, over the course of about a month and a half or almost 2 months, I think, we ended up playing on Saturday nights and starting from scratch to beating the Nether Ender Dragon, and finished it in about 19 hours or so. So a full playthrough with a group of about 4 or 5 people at a time. We beat Minecraft, and that was so incredible. And again, I did it in VR. It was so cool. Then I ended up playing Shinobi Art of Vengeance right before my birthday. Shinobi is another ninja game. And again, like I was saying, it's the year of the ninja, right? So I had a lot of fun with that. It was really, really cool because the art style, not only the art style is breathtaking. It is so interesting, so fun, but it's also a Metroidvania. I'm not a big fan of that term. You know I'm not if you've listened to the podcast, but I'm just going to say it. And then 2026, we're never talking about Metroidvanias again. So this will be the last time. But that's what it is. It's a Metroidvania. So you explore, and there's paths that only unlock after you continue on in a different area, get an upgrade, and then can unlock the path. So it's really cool. It ended up being 17 hours, and I 100%ed that game. I very rarely ever 100% a game, but man, oh man, that was great. That was so much fun. And again, it was another game that I didn't play on stream. I think I played part of it on stream. I think like 2/3 of it I did play on stream, but I didn't end up finishing it or something. I can't remember. But it's a really good game, and we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end of the podcast. And then, what an odd one. RoboCop Rogue City Unfinished Business. This is a standalone side quest, technically sequel to the 2022 game RoboCop Rogue City. It's not only just a love letter to RoboCop, it is the defining RoboCop video game of all time. And it also is, it's so crazy. Give me 1 second here. RoboCop City is basically, Rogue City is basically the third real movie. The third movie sucks, and this basically erases that and replaces Rogue City as the third movie in the RoboCop trilogy. But it's a video game, and you get to play as Murphy, or Alex Murphy / RoboCop, and Lewis is there. It is just unbelievable. It's such a cool game. So this Unfinished Business started out as DLC, but it expanded into its own game. Unfortunately, I think it is much less structured in a good way. The plot doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It kind of meanders around a lot. And they really tried, I don't know why, but they really tried to just basically tack on this idea of RoboCop being stuck in this tower and having to climb his way up through the tower. And you kind of do that, but it's not really, it doesn't really come across that way. What I'm talking about is basically if you've ever seen I think it's a Vietnamese movie. I think it's Vietnamese. I could be wrong. Maybe South Korean. It's a movie called The Raid. And The Raid is basically where this cop, has this mega structure, this slum tower that he has to start from the bottom and go all the way up the tower, and all these bad guys are trying to kill him throughout the entire thing. It's really, really cool. Think about it as a building version of John Wick 4. So that's really cool, but they actually took that idea and then converted it into an American film called Dredd, which is Judge Dredd, by the way. There was the Carl Urban 2012 version of Judge Dredd, the movie, just called Dredd. And it's that same exact premise. Judge Dredd starts at the bottom of this like mega tower building, this slum building, and he has to work his way up. It's a really great film. It's fantastic. I love the Stallone version of Judge Dredd, but man, the Carl Urban one is just phenomenal. Anyways, I digress. They take that premise and apply it to RoboCop, and it sounds cool, and I was super on board. It just doesn't feel like they actually achieved that. It just kind of feels like you're going from room to room, section to section, and it doesn't feel interconnected. There's a lot of extra characters that get kind of like added to your posse, and you're kind of just like, I don't care. However, number one, they allow you to play as Alex Murphy before he became RoboCop. And that little section, that little flashback section is really, really fun and really cool. I love it. It's fantastic. It's also kind of a hard game. I died quite a lot in that game. But as you progress and get unlocks, oh my gosh, some of the unlocks are phenomenal. Again, I made a couple YouTube shorts of it where I'm just holding down the trigger. And oh, by the way, I was playing in VR because it's Unreal Engine 5, so I was able to use UEVR mod, and be able to play that whole game in virtual reality. Oh my gosh, playing RoboCop in virtual reality is one of the greatest video game experiences you can have. But there's this upgrade to the Auto 9 handgun that it's full trigger. You just press the trigger and hold. Full auto, unlimited ammo capacity. No stopping to reload, nothing. You are just pulling the trigger and just killing everything in sight. And it is so, so, so fun. Then we get to... We Love Katamari. We Love Katamari is kind of an interesting one as well. I don't know why. I can't remember this game. I can't remember playing much of this game, but it is a Katamari Damacy game. And Katamari Damacy is this weird Japanese game from the PS2 where you're playing as the Prince. Not Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince, but a cosmic being known as the Prince. And your dad is the king of all cosmos. The whole premise is you are on Earth and you're this little tiny guy, almost the size of an atom. And you have like this weird, like, in Willy Wonka, the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie from the 70s, the gobstopper, the everlasting gobstopper, that, you know how that looks all kind of weird and pointy? This ball called the Katamari looks like that. And you as the prince are basically just pushing this ball forward or to the side or backwards and rolling over objects. It starts off small, like a thumbtack or a paper clip, but it sticks to the ball. And as you progress and you move forward and you roll over more objects, the Katamari picks up more and more things to the point it grows in size and allows you to pick up larger objects. They made quite a few of these games over the last couple of decades. And this is just the third game in the series, I believe. And it is, I think it's the third game. Maybe the second. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I'm blanking. It's starting to get late. But I I played through this because they remastered these games. They re-released and remastered these games. They're, again, very low poly. They look just high definition PS2 graphics, but they're just fun games. And the music usually is pretty good. There's a few bad, like just annoying songs. There's also a lot of just Japanese style, like just, why is this in here? Why is this sound? If you've ever watched Japanese like TV or not talk shows, sorry, game shows, Japanese game shows where they're just bonkers off the wall, like that's basically what this game is. It's fun, but you have to have a taste for it. Some people just can't stand it. There are parts that I can't stand, but I still enjoy the game for the most part. I'm going to try and kind of keep this a little bit brief because I got a lot of other stuff going on, but let's kind of continue on. The next game that I played and beat was called Mega Bonk. This was a weird game. This kind of came out of nowhere. It was an indie darling. It got a award for, or nominated for a game award in December. Jeff Keighley puts on the game awards, kind of like the video game Oscars, I guess is how a lot of people talk about it. It's an award show for video games, and this game just blew up on the internet. And then it got a nomination, and then the developer, who's anonymous, said, I've actually made, it was best indie debut or something like that, like best brand new game, basically. And the developer said, I'm going to remove myself from this category because I've actually made games under another anonymous type of thing. So this is not my first game. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But Mega Bonk basically is Vampire Survivors in 3D. Vampire Survivors came out a few years ago on Xbox. Yeah, it was on Xbox Game Pass, and then it came out on Steam, and now I think it's on a couple other, like Switch and things like that. But Vampire Survivors is basically this auto shooter / auto melee game where all you do, it's a top-down view of your character, and all you do is you move your character, and you try to avoid enemies that are coming at you, and it's big hordes of enemies coming at you. But your character auto attacks every 2 seconds, let's say. Every 2 seconds, your character slashes a sword. And so you have to maneuver your way around these enemy hordes so that you don't get hit, but you also attack every 2 seconds as well. And it just gets crazy. It's a huge game. I've talked about it on the podcast before. I think I even talked about Game of the Year that year. Well, someone made a 3D version of it where you're behind the character, third-person view, and there's hills because you're in third person. Now you actually see the layout instead of just top-down view. You're actually able to move the camera around. You're also able to jump, which adds a massive amount of maneuverability and just gameplay prospects. So it was really, really cool. I got sucked into this game. I put 20 plus hours into it, and I had a blast, man. It's just such a good game. I highly recommend it. It's also very cheap. I think it was like $8 on launch day, and I got 20 plus hours of gameplay out of it. The unlocks and all that stuff just like compound on. Each level takes about half an hour. Maybe it takes about more than half an hour. I think it's like 20 to 35, 38 minutes, somewhere around there. I could be wrong. But, it's just such a good game. Then we got a game in October called Little Nightmares 3. Man, this was such a letdown, unfortunately. Little Nightmares is a really interesting series that my friend Sean really turned me on to. My friend Sean, I love Sean. He knows me very well. He knows what I like about video games and what's going to really appeal to me, whether it's video games, movie, TV show, comic books, whatever. He knows my, like, the things that I really enjoy very well. So he said several years ago, Ryan, you need to play Little Nightmares. So I looked it up and I went, nope, that game looks terrifying. I do not want to play that. I do not like horror games. He's like, it's not really horror. It's kind of a puzzle. It's weird. It's like Little Big Planet, side scroller, but with a really Tim Burton-y, weird kind of, but a more tinted towards horror aspect. And I went, maybe I'll try it. And I tried it and I loved it. And then a second game came out a few years ago. And Little Nightmares 2 came out like right after we moved out here to Tennessee in 2021. And I went, oh man, I got to play this. So I played Little Nightmares 2 and I was excited. Little Nightmares 3 got announced like late last year or early this year. I can't remember. I was so excited. And then it came out in October. I bought it day one. I played it and went, this doesn't feel the same. It feels really odd and weird. I don't know what's going on with it. Come to find out, it's made by different people. It's a different developer. And the developers that made Little Nightmares 1 and 2 are making a new game called like Reanimal. Weird name. I don't know why. And I watched a little, just not even the full trailer. I just watched little snippets of it and went, that's Little Nightmares 3. Why is this called Little Nightmares 3 when that's Little Nightmares 3? So there's some interesting, there's a really cool couple of levels in Little Nightmares 3, the real named version Little Nightmares 3. But honestly, I did not like it. It was one of the most disappointing games that I, not just disappointing games that I played this year, disappointing purchases of all time for me. I very rarely regret my purchases of video games because I can usually find a good chunk of stuff to go, you know what, that was worth it, whatever. Little Nightmares 3 is definitely one of those, ooh, I regret buying this game. This is not a game I should have bought. It's not good. It's not a good game. It's not a good Little Nightmares game at all. And it was a bait and switch. And that's really what I was most pissed off about. It's just a bait and switch. It's called Little Nightmares 3. It has like just enough to connect it to that franchise, but it is not the third entry. It's not. There's not enough to do in it either. For the most part, number one, for the most part, it is just go left or right, like side scroller. There's very little opposition. There's not really much to do. You're just progressing the character from one side of the screen to the other. That's the majority of the gameplay. The second issue is that it's a co-op game. And if you play it single player, you have to have this character around you 24/7. Like you get separated a couple times throughout the game, but for the most part, you are just dragging this other character along with you. And it's an escort mission is what they usually call it in video games. And most people hate escort missions. So I was really bummed out about that. Then another indie game came out around that time on, and I saw this posted on X a few days before the game came out, and I went, that looks really again, it looks really cool. I'm super excited. I want to play this now. And when it finally dropped, it was on Game Pass, and I was so excited. But for whatever reason, I didn't hear anyone else talking about this game, and I was bummed because this is, again, something that, like, there was... So I kind of didn't talk about something that happened around this time. This is back in October. So my birthday, and I talked about this on the previous podcast, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. But my birthday is September 10th, and September 10th was a really weird day for pretty much everyone. But also, my wife was out of the country, and I had to take care of all the dogs and animals that we have: ducks, geese, chickens, fish, turtles, cats, dogs. And I kind of couldn't stream as much as I wanted to. I really, really wanted to. And so I ended up playing a lot of these games offline, off stream. And it was really a little bit cathartic because I could just kind of relax and play a game, not have to talk and be on camera and performing. But I played Ball X Pit. This is a super, super weird game where basically it's a mesh of Arkanoid, the old Breakout game. It's called either Breakout or Arkanoid. I know it is Arkanoid more than Breakout, but Breakout is the game that most people know it as. Where you have this paddle at the bottom, kind of like Pong, and a ball, hits that paddle and bounces up the screen. So it's the paddle is at the bottom, the ball shoots up the screen once it hits the paddle, and then there's a bunch of blocks at the top of the screen that have to break. And when that ball hits that brick, the brick breaks, and then you have to clear the entire screen. That's how Arkanoid or Breakout works. Well, Ball X Pit is basically the same premise, but your paddle is attached to a character, and they basically hit that, but they also have a lot of power-ups that shoot multiple balls at the same time, or different power-ups like it freezes any stack that it hits, and it shoots a freeze ray up the stack, any one in that column of bricks, or it's a fireball that sets the bricks on fire and breaks, it adds like layers of damage and stuff. It is so crazy and unique. It's a very unique game, and man, I loved it. I devoured it. It's really cool too because they added this extra layer at the end of the level, where the level is the main part of the game, but there's this hub area that you build buildings, and anytime you build buildings, it adds to your time limit or power-ups or health or whatever. And so there's these two little sections of this game combined. It just is such an enjoyable game. I loved it so much. Then I played Keeper. Keeper is basically this game by Double Fine. I love Double Fine. They're one of my favorite developers. They made Psychonauts, my favorite game of all time. However, Keeper is this story about a lighthouse, like a physical lighthouse that has legs and is sentient and moves. And it goes from point A to point B. It doesn't talk. It doesn't emote. It just exists. And you play as the lighthouse, moving from one part of the screen to the other, and it can jump and can shine the light on things, and it's a puzzle platformer. I did not enjoy it pretty much at all. The first half of the game, it's about a 4-hour game. The first 2 hours are excruciatingly slow and boring, and I hated it, and I almost didn't even finish it. But I said, I just want to play this game. I want to finish it. I want to, really try. The second half of the game is much better, much more enjoyable, but still, it's a disappointment. It's like, wow. They followed up Psychonauts 2 back in 2021 with this, and it's a 4-hour game. It looks incredible. It's a very breathtaking looking visual game, but that is literally all it has going for it. The story kind of sucks. The characters, which are non-existent, suck. You have no idea what's happening or why anything's happening pretty much the entire time. It's just a really boring game. So I was really disappointed with it. Oh, okay. We're going to power through these last few things here. But I gotta talk about this one. Dispatch. Dispatch came out of nowhere, even though it was hyped up and was talked about and revealed last year at the Game Awards with Aaron Paul, the guy for Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. Give me a second here. So Aaron Paul is the voice actor of this character named Robbie Robertson. And it's funny, my dad texted me today, "Oh, I was listening to your podcast." So thanks, Dad. I was listening to your podcast, and I heard you talking about Robbie Robertson. I didn't know he was in a video game. Apparently, Robbie Robertson is like this guitarist for Bob Dylan, his live band. And I went, I didn't even know that person. That's funny. I did not know that guy had that name, Robbie Robertson. I'm not a big Bob Dylan fan, so I didn't know that. But yeah, I thought that was funny. Anyways, Dispatch is basically about this guy who is a superhero, and he is a superhero in the sense that he fights crime. He doesn't have any special powers. He can't fly or he's super strong. He's just a human being. But he has a mech suit that he suits up in and battles these villains, these super villains that can fly and can, cause acid to come out of their skin or whatever. Well, he gets beaten up so bad that his mech gets destroyed, and the city is going, oh my gosh, this character, Mecha Man, is gonna retire. He does like this press conference as his, superhero alter ego and says, hey, because no one knows his secret identity is Robbie Robertson. Hey, I'm Mecha Man. I got beat up. My mech suit is destroyed. I'm dropping out of the superhero game. I'm retiring. Along comes this actual other superhero who can fly called Blonde Blazer and says, hey, she comes along and says, hey, we've got this superhero dispatch office where people call in and say, hey, I need help. And we dispatch superheroes across the LA County. So in like Torrance, I believe is where it's located. So do you want to be a dispatcher? And that's where the name of the game comes from, Dispatch. He goes, well, I have no mech suit, so sure, why not? And I have no way to live, and my life sucks. So he ends up being this dispatcher for this ragtag group of ex-supervillains who are trying to turn a new leaf and, become good. And it's just delightful. However, it is made by the same team that did A Wolf Among Us from Telltale. They made some really interesting and really fun story-based games where it's light on gameplay, really heavy on the story. A Wolf Among Us was my favorite. It takes place in the Fables universe where the big bad wolf, Snow White, Bloody Mary, Wind in the Willows, like any fable or Aesop's fable or Mother Goose story or whatever, they're all real characters. They're all people or, characters. And they all live in the city among normal people. And so like, it's really interesting. I love that series to death. And the team made Dispatch. And so I give it a chance. And it's basically like this interactive cartoon. It is a really touching story at some point. It is really amped up. Like you get invested, like you watch a TV show and binge it, like you get to binge this game. And it is so fun. It's so interactive. The gameplay aspect too, where you are actually dispatching your superhero team out to, save a sinking ship or save a person from building being on fire or whatever. It's just so fun. So I loved it. Then came A World for Keflings DLC. So like I said earlier when we were talking about A World for Keflings, that came out on Steam a few months ago. And then back in, November, they came out with, and they ported their old DLC, Zombiesaurus, which is a Halloween-themed DLC. We got a lot of those back in the day. For like the Xbox Live Arcade games, there was always holiday-themed DLC. For Christmas, New Year's, for Easter, for Halloween, for 4th of July, we would get a lot of that like holiday DLC. Well, that's what this is. So it was really fun to be able to play Halloween DLC. However, it was at the end of November. I don't know why they took so long to port it. Like it was right there. It was Halloween and they just they couldn't get it done in time or whatever, but whatever, who cares? So I played through it. It's just a couple hours long and I had a really good time. It's more Keflings, which I'm super excited about. And then after that came Time Splitters Rewind. Now, Time Splitters is a series that came out back in the PS2 era, and it's like this weird game about time hopping or time travel where you are trying to stop the like world artifacts from being stolen from these aliens. It's a really interesting game. And I had a fun time with this back in the day. I love Time Splitters. Time Splitters 2 and Time Splitters 3, which is called Future Perfect. Time Splitters 3 Future Perfect is my favorite out of all 3 games. Well, the series was actually created by the GoldenEye team, GoldenEye 007 on the Nintendo 64. Original Rare developers played or made those games, and then they branched off from Rare back in the PS2 era, and they made Time Splitters, and they made 3 of them. Everyone loved that. And they've been trying to make a 4th game for years and years and years. And I think even earlier this year, they announced, we were trying to make Time Splitters 4 again for like the 3rd time, and it's canceled. It's never going to happen. However, over the course of the last decade, there has been this team of fans that have been spending time developing a remake of Time Splitters 1, 2, and 3. A fan remake of Time Splitters 1, 2, and 3 called Time Splitters Rewind. Out of nowhere, Time Splitters Rewind dropped as a full, we're done with Time Splitters 1, here it is in full form. And I played through it on stream, and it was a blast. It's so good to be back into those style of games. We need more of them. Then I ended up playing Terminator 2D. I take back. Then after that, I played Cleared Hot. Cleared Hot is basically Jungle Strike or Desert Strike from the Sega Genesis. It's a helicopter game where it's a isometric view, and you play as this helicopter pilot and shoot down things, right? But Cleared Hot adds an additional fun story to it. It also adds... I'm trying to think here. It adds a little bit extra. It adds in more story and physics to the game itself, and it's really, really enjoyable for the few hours that there is. However, apparently it's in early access. I finished the story. I finished what there is, and there's credits that roll, so I'm counting it as a finished game. But apparently they're going to make more episodes, I guess. So it's a really cool game, but it's in early access. But Cleared Hot, if you like the old Sega Genesis Jungle Strike and Desert Strike games, there's not really anything else out there like it, and it's phenomenal. It's a really fun game. Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to switch up these two just because I want to talk about them in a row. Then I played Terminator 2D No Fate. Now, I'm going to talk about this really quickly because it's basically a super short game. It's about half an hour long. It took me an hour to finish because I had a little trouble at the very end of the game. But Terminator 2D No Fate is literally Terminator 2 in video game form. It's a really beautiful pixel style game that just tells the story of Terminator 2 in video game form. However, number one, they tack on a beginning that allows you to understand why Sarah Connor is in a prison. And number two, they add a little bit of an elemental choice to the game. So like in the middle of the game, you can make a couple choices that affect the outcome in some cutscenes. And then you can replay the game in a different order with different characters and different cutscenes and different levels. I, however, did not find the game that enjoyable to replay it. It's a very short game. It took me about 30, I think the clear time was 38 minutes on the game. But like I said, the very last thing, it took me like 8 retries to finish the final level, because you actually do get to play as Kyle Reese in the future. Blowing up a bunch of stuff is it's really fun, but a very, very short game. Then I played I Expect You to Die 1, 2, and 3, which is an old VR game. Really, really crazy that I never finished these games. I'm so bummed, but so happy at the same time. I remember playing I Expect You to Die when it first came out because it was an early VR game and there wasn't really a whole lot. So I was like, oh, dude, this game is basically like a James Bond game. All right, cool. So I started playing it. And for whatever reason, I really struggled because I didn't realize what it was at the time, which is an escape room. Escape rooms are like like an older fad at this point. I didn't realize it, but like escape rooms been around for a while now. And I've never been into them. I've never been into that fad. I've never even done an escape room. But this game is basically that with a James Bond layer to it. And I was super intrigued. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll try this out. But back in the day when it first came out, I just never got into it. Well, I was scrolling along a few weeks ago in my VR headset going, man, what can I play? And I went, I Expect You to Die. I remember that. You know what? Let's just try it. Let's give it the old college try again. It's a few years later. Maybe it's something that I'll enjoy now. And man, did I. These games are phenomenal. These are some of the best VR games out there, period, bar none. They're dripping with the spy setting from like James Bond, which we don't have anymore. It's very comedic as well, but in a tongue-in-cheek, not overly obnoxious way. And that's what I loved about it. I just had so much fun. So you play as Agent Phoenix, and you're working for this, M6 or M6 type of British agency. It's not Britain. It's not Britain, I don't think. But you play as this character, and you are just like in a sitting location or standing location. You don't get to move around the environment, but you get to use telekinesis to kind of pull objects towards you from across the room or whatever. Because back in the day, they didn't have a whole lot of like room scale VR games. It was a lot of sitting, even some stuff was all for controllers and not even motion controls back in the original 2016, early 2017 days of VR. So it's a sitting or standing game, and you don't really move around a lot, but you look around a lot, and you get to interact with a lot of objects, and you basically have to accomplish a goal, whether it's stopping a bomb from going off, or getting a car out of an airplane, or even being submerged in a submarine, and you have to surface. But as you're trying to surface, the submarine is breaking apart, and you have to keep fixing it, in different ways. Like, it is so unique and so cool, and I just loved every part of it. That's a first game. There's two others. So I played the second one, and the second one takes everything and ramps it up. It also adds in the villain. The villain for the second game is Wil Wheaton. If you watched, he kind of became popular in my generation from either Star Trek: The Next Generation as Wesley Crusher, or on The Big Bang Theory as Wil Wheaton himself, right? Like, was it Sheldon's like arch nemesis for a while or whatever? He also got really popular by doing voice acting. So he's the voice actor for the main villain. And this whole series doesn't really deal with very realistic textures. Like, the characters that you kind of see on screen don't have faces. They're all silhouettes with really artistic, like almost comic book style shading. The best example I can see would be, or give you, would be when in the movie Sin City, Robert Rodriguez's Sin City, Elijah Wood plays this character, Kevin, right? And he's got these really rounded, Ozzy Osbourne style or John Lennon style glasses. But when he comes on screen the first time, his whole face is completely in shadow. And the only thing that you see on his face is the glasses, and they're just white. So it's a really artistic comic book style shading to it. And that's how the characters are portrayed in this game too. So you get Wil Wheaton, who is a great, phenomenal voice actor, and he's playing the villain of this game. And man, it is so good. Also, I'll say that if you haven't read Ready Player One, if you're not into reading, but you want audiobooks, because that's how I read it. I read part of Ready Player One on my own, but then I did the audiobook version. Wil Wheaton does the audiobook version of Ready Player One and Ready Player Two, and it's so good. Oh my gosh, get it. But there was 3 games. So I expect you to die 1, I expect you to die 2, and then I expect you to die 3, which came out a couple years ago. And unfortunately, they're not making a 4th game right now. But like at the end of every James Bond, at the end of the credits for I expect you to die 1, 2, and 3, they all say Agent Phoenix will return, your character. So I'm assuming and I'm guessing after they're making their new game, which is like a free-to-play multiplayer game, which I'm super bummed about. When they get done with that garbage, hopefully we'll get I Expect You to Die 4. But before I move on to the next game, let me talk about, just really quickly here, the the intro sequence for these games. They go full-blown James Bond intro. Beautiful song accompanied by all these really cool video effects and everything like that. If you've seen, I think a lot of people are, the touchstone for James Bond intros is Skyfall. I think Adele sang that song, and that's like, even people who don't watch James Bond know the Skyfall theme, right? It's that in video game VR form. So you're watching like these huge like bullets whizzing by your face, and it's all tracked and dollied, and it is just, as soon as I played this game, I went, I love this. This is fantastic. I want this team to make games like this for the rest of our lives and give them whatever budget and money they want, because they're worth it. They're fantastic. I love that team. They are my new favorite development team right now. They just a perfect games. I will say, I think after playing all 3 games in like a row, I played 1 per night, which was super fun. I will say that I enjoyed I Expect You to Die 2 the best. I think that's my favorite, the one with Will Wheaton. I just think the story comes together in such a great way. Excuse me. I will say also, I Expect You to Die 3 has the best level of the entire series. There is one level in particular where you're on a car, or in a car, and you have to drive up next to this truck and shoot your grappling hook and pull off certain things, and you have to disarm certain sections to it to open up the back and steal the main device. That whole level is just so well done because you are moving around in the environment, but you're doing it in a car. And man, it's just so cool. There's this one part where you're driving alongside this big rig truck, and the device is underneath the truck. And you're in a car, you're in a Corvette. So you pop off the top, and then you drive next to the big rig, and then you drive in between, underneath the big rig, and you're looking up at the bottom carriage of the big rig, and you're like pulling a case out or whatever it is. Oh my gosh, like such ingenuity. So much just like, wow, that's so creative. And doing it in VR just makes it so much more realistic too. It feels like you're driving under, like I'm sitting there in a chair in my room at like, by myself at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting there like kind of ducking down because I'm driving underneath this. Like clearly I don't need to do that, but it feels so real in the moment that I'm instinctively like ducking my head so that I don't hit the top of the bottom part of the big rig. It's just, it's fantastic. So I finished those 3 games, and then I played a game that I wanted to play as soon as it got announced and came out. Like they had a demo of it, and I played like I think literally 30 seconds of the demo, and then I had to stop for whatever reason and didn't come back to it until this Steam sale. This last Christmas Steam sale, which is still going on for like the next 4 days. Ghost Town, which is another VR game. I played a lot of VR games. Ghost Town is something that was kind of hyped up for me a lot. I saw everyone talking about Ghost Town. Anytime people would be talking about really good VR games this year, Ghost Town would get brought up. So I bought it kind of sight unseen. Like I said, I played like a minute or 2 of Ghost Town, the demo on Steam months ago, So I don't really remember anything about it other than, wow, this looks really, really good. Like the graphics look super realistic. I bought it, I played through it and went, oh, I kind of don't like this. It's not a bad game. It's just subject matter that I don't like, which is seances and ghosts and spirits and summoning spirits and kind of a lot of demonic stuff that I'm not into. Like when that stuff comes on, my soul gets kind of like icky. Like I feel icky. I feel disturbed. It's upsetting to me and my soul. So it's something that I was kind of really bummed out about because I wanted to like it. And I think there's really cool aspects of that game. The level design and, like I said, the graphics are top notch. They're some of the best video game graphics out there, period, whether it's in VR or flat screen. But the subject matter, like I said, it's a lot. There's like a whole seance section. There's a lot of demonic possession. It doesn't sit well with me in my spirit. So I was not a fan of it. It's a bummer. But the game is really well made, really well done. I needed a kind of a little bit of a palate cleanse after that. And so I ended up playing Peggle Extreme, which is, if you don't know, PopCap used to be like this really big game development studio for a while, and they made a lot of mobile games. But one of the games that they made is called Peggle, which is this weird Plinko game where you start at the top and you have this ball that you kind of angle and shoot downward, and all these pegs it bounces off of and makes those pegs disappear. It's called Plinko in the real world, but it's like a video game version of that. Well, they came out with two main games, Peggle and Peggle Knights. This is back in like the late 2000s, like 2009, 2011. Well, they came out with Peggle and then Peggle Knights, which is like just a sequel, but it's kind of a little bit more dark, not dark as in eerie or creepy, but dark as in it's nighttime. It's a lot of like blues coloring schemes and stuff like that. And then they came out, I didn't even know this existed. It's a free game on Steam right now called Peggle Extreme, which is this like almost demo version. It's like half an hour long, and it's got the background, because we used to have a lot of this stuff in back in the day on the PC, where the background is a video game or a company, and it's Valve. So Valve put this version of Peggle out called Peggle Extreme, which basically just gives you a little couple lines of text that add it into the Half-Life universe. So you see a lot of the Team Fortress 2 characters. You see a lot of the sentry bots from Portal. It's really weird, but hey, it kind of cleansed my palate a little bit, like I said. And then the last game I played for this year, and this is such a bummer, I haven't really finished anything else this year, Deadpool VR. This kind of came out of nowhere back in the summer, I believe, when they showed it off at Summer Games Fest. It was a Deadpool game in VR. Well, last year we had Deadpool versus Wolverine, right? The movie, and everyone loved it. It was just all over the place. I feel like this game should have come out then. It would have done gangbusters. But obviously with development times and just the way games are developed nowadays, they take so stinking long. They kind of missed that window, and now we're just in Christmas of 2025 and we get a Deadpool game. I'm not a big fan of Deadpool. I've really tried to get into Deadpool over the years. I've never really been a fan. Back in 2009, when I owned my game store, I would frequent the local comic shop. And I became friends with the owner, and we would do a couple cross promotions and stuff like that. But I remember dropping some money on like several Deadpool graphic novels and trying to get into Deadpool. I just couldn't. I really don't like the fourth wall breaking. I don't really like, especially the modern Deadpool where it's just super raunchy, like 24/7 raunchiness. Like, I just don't need that, dude. I am not an 12-year-old boy. I don't need to giggle at farts and poop and stuff like that. So I was really upset about like Deadpool over the last several years. And then with the Ryan Reynolds stuff, like I said, they cranked it up to 11 with that. And then coming into Deadpool VR, I was like, but it's a VR game and it had $10 off. Like, this is a brand new VR game, just came out like a month ago, and it's like a $50 game, but there's $10 off, and you don't really get that all that often. So I kind of bought it, just kind of like going, yeah, whatever. I really enjoyed it. Like, really enjoyed it. You are Deadpool, and Deadpool is voiced by Neil Patrick Harris. Barney Stinson from How I Met Your Mother, right? Or Doogie Howser. My generation. I never watched Doogie Howser, but man, I loved How I Met Your Mother back when it used to be on. So you play as Deadpool. You have a great time. It's really fun. And also, Deadpool, Neil Patrick Harris does a really good job. But basically, Deadpool gets sucked into this, into Mojo world. Mojo is a character that really never gets featured, and Spiral is there, and Spiral's another character that you really don't see. And then you basically are tasked with bringing these other characters to Mojo world to be contestants on Mojo's, TV show, death matches and stuff like that. So you battle characters like Omega Red, which was my favorite. And also, I'm trying to think of other people. Lady Deathstrike, that was really fun too. It's just a really good game. It's a phenomenal game. I loved every part of it for the most part. I think the writing, they went a little bit too much with the writing, but I think the writing is really well done at the same time. So, yeah. Okay, so that's all the games that I've been playing. Like I said, these podcasts are a little bit different than most Game of the Year podcasts. So I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet. It's getting close to midnight here, and we still need to watch Stranger Things, and I feel really bad for my wife. So let's talk about my games of the year, my top 10 list, finally, right? Megabonk is number 10. I talked about it. I said Megabonk is really fun. I love it. It is a really interesting game that takes the Vampire Survivors and just kind of, again, changes it. Number 9 is Deadpool VR. I had a good enough time to keep it on my top 10. Number 8 is RoboCop Rogue City Unfinished Business. Number 7 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. Again, I had a really fun time. Like, I can sit and play Tony Hawk anytime, any day. It takes something really special for me to not like a Tony Hawk game. And 3 and 4 are not my favorites, but it's still Tony Hawk. And you got Bam Margera and you got CKY on the soundtrack. Like, that automatically adds a couple of points. And let me say this too really quick. Bam Margera is such a controversial person in life, and he's had a really tough last decade or two. Like, he's just gone off the deep end. Like, a couple of years ago, he got kicked off of Jackass 4 when they were they filmed it, and then they were like, "You're done. Like, we're cutting you out of the film. You're out of your mind. You're on drugs. You're not passing all these tests, that we require for you to be clean." And he's just kind of spiraled out of control to the point where anytime like he would come up in the news, it was like, "Oh my gosh, he finally died." Like, that's what we all assumed. He finally died. Like, we knew he was going to die because he was just so out of control and spiraling the drain for so many years. Apparently, this last year, he got cleaned up enough to be put back in Tony Hawk, because they didn't have him in Tony Hawk's 3+4. Even though he was in the original game, he was in such a bad state that they just did not even put him in that game. And at the 11th hour before the game came out, Tony Hawk said, "No, you need to put Bam in the video game." And they went, "All right, fine." And so like he's doing really well, and it's one of those feel good stories where you hear someone that you kind of like either looked up to or kind of have reverence for, and they're doing bad. They're having struggles, you just hear bad things about them and you go, "Oh, that sucks." Well, Bam was that kind of guy for me. Like entrepreneur, made all these famous videos, became a movie star and a rock star and all this stuff, and then just spiraled out of control. It's a bummer to see. So to see him doing well, so well that they're like, he's starting to mend a lot of friendships that he just burned bridges over years ago. Like, it's great to see. So like, it's a feel good moment. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. This one's a little bit hard. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound / Shinobi. Both of them were like right on top of each other. I'm just kind of gonna give it either one or the other. I think in the actual review that I write tomorrow, I will make a decision, but both of them are fantastic. I think Shinobi kind of wins over that. Number 5 is Donkey Kong Bonanza, because man, Donkey Kong Bonanza is just one of those games that comes along every once in a while and just blows you away with how good it is, even though you might have a really bad moment or two with it. On the whole, that probably, honestly, just full disclosure, if I didn't do a personal top 10 where it's like I'm going off my more feelings and what emotions I feel during that game and what speaks to me more, Donkey Kong Bonanza is probably the best game of the year. Like, it's a brand new game, came out of nowhere, with a property that's kind of been, dropped by the wayside for quite a while. And it does everything right. Honestly, it does everything right, except for that final boss battle, dude, just the worst. Number 4 is Dispatch. Light on the gameplay, heavy on the emotional storytelling, to the point where it's like, dude, they need to get cooking on Dispatch 2, and they're not. They're doing another game, and it's Dispatch 2 is going to come out in about 5 years from now, probably, maybe 6, and it's going to lose all goodwill, all momentum. No one will care about Dispatch 2. I guarantee it. Like, mark my words. Dispatch 2 is going to come out in like 2030, 2031. No one will care about it. Number 3 is one that I haven't even talked about tonight because I didn't finish it. And I'm really bummed that I didn't finish it. But like I said, the year just kind of went sideways for me. Oblivion Remastered. Oblivion was one of my favorite games on the Xbox 360. I got 90 hours into Oblivion, but I never finished it. Same thing happened with Skyrim on the 360. I got really far into it, I think 90, 100 hours or 120 hours. I can't remember. And I got a game-breaking bug and I couldn't finish it. That's on the 360. I did end up playing Skyrim on PC and finishing it. But Oblivion Remaster, I played on launch day. It's an Unreal Engine remaster of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And I played it in UEVR mode. So the Unreal Engine VR mod. I played through that, and man, dude, just perfect. Just a perfect remaster. It is top notch. The enemies look so much better. Like the flying nymph or the zombie, they look like modern, brand new in-game engine characters. Just phenomenal. Then number 2. Number 2 is the Midnight Walk. Like I said, it spoke to me on a level that no game really does. And when a game does that, no matter what it is, like I've thought about the Midnight Walk all year long since I played it. Every couple of weeks, I think about the Midnight Walk and I go, oh, I wish I could replay that. It was such a special moment in games this year. And then the last one, another one that I didn't finish. And I'm going to preface this. I normally don't put games on my Game of the Year list that I don't finish. I've never really done that before. I think this is the first year. But number 1, I played enough of it. I'm almost at the end. And it's a game that I really think deserves to be talked about more because a lot of people forget. Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment. Hyrule Warriors is basically Dynasty Warriors with a Zelda skin. And the first one that came out on the Wii U was basically like this, like, just throwaway title. It meant nothing to no one. Like, no one cared about Hyrule Warriors. But in 2020, when Hyrule Warriors 2 came out, which is called Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity, they actually went, okay, we now have the Breath of the Wild series. We're actually going to make the Breath of the Wild game canon, and we're going to make Hyrule Warriors tie into it, and that be canon as well. And so I had such a deep love for Breath of the Wild that Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity is basically Breath of the Wild 1.5. It's a side story with a different gameplay element. That's it. So you get more Zelda. That's how cool it is. And then they did the same thing with Age of Imprisonment this year, a couple months ago. Age of Imprisonment is basically Tears of the Kingdom 1.5. Like, it's a side story where in Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda travels back in time to the very beginning of when Hyrule was first ruled by the original king of Hyrule. Age of Imprisonment is that story. It's unbelievable. It is so fun. The gameplay is a little bit lighter. You are, kind of in like battle arenas or maps where you're killing thousands and thousands of enemies, and they don't really mean a whole lot. They don't do a whole lot. It's just kind of fodder for the most part. But the characters and the story that they're telling, really good cutscenes, great, phenomenal voice acting. Everything about it is just perfect. It's more Tears of the Kingdom. It's more Tears of the Kingdom, which was my game of the year that year when it came out 2 years ago. And I love the Breath of the Wild version of Zelda. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, those two games I think are the best Zelda games. I love Ocarina of Time. I don't like... I like Zelda as a franchise more than I feel like I probably should. Because I've never played all of them. I like a lot of them, but there's a couple where I just go, this is phenomenal. This is some of my favorite games in all of video games. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are up there in the pantheon of my favorite games of all time. They might not break the top 10, but they're in the top 25 for sure. So having more Zelda this year on a brand new Switch 2 system, that's all I want. I just haven't finished it because of life. Like, there's just been so much going on this year. And to kind of close this podcast out and this stream out for New Year's and hopefully starting 2026 off much better than 2025. 2025, like I said, was extremely rough for me. Health-wise, I got sick more often. I got sick this year, at the beginning of the year, more than I ever have been in my entire life, probably combined. Like, I never get sick. I got sick like 5 or 6 times in a row this year. I had a lot of just personal issues with just things not going my way and getting really bummed out and depressed, and just really a really hard year for me personally. Very in a creative like whirlpool of just like, what am I doing? Like, why does this matter? I pushed really, really hard on the streaming aspect and it didn't go anywhere. I pushed really, really hard on the social media aspect and it didn't go anywhere. Like, this has just been a year of disappointments, and not just like disappointments of, oh, whatever. It's a year of existential crisis. Going, what does it all mean? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Does anyone care? And it feels like no one cares. And I've been in that like just bummer mindset for the majority of this year. Like, there's highs, but there's lows where I'm just like, forget all this. Like, I'm never streaming ever again. I'm never podcasting. I'm never writing another review. I'm never going to like, dude, just all this stuff has been happening and it's been hard. It's been really hard. But the last couple of weeks have kind of reset. I've reset myself. And today, especially with my wife, over the last couple of weeks, we've kind of talked a lot and she's helped me understand some stuff. And even today, like having her help me with the studio and kind of getting it to a point where I don't hate being in here. Like, again, not having a creative space and having a space that you just dread going into is really, really sucky. And I hope that we can get to a point in the studio where I don't dread being in here. It is also a part of my work too. Like, I literally work here and then I have to have fun here too. That's really hard to have the same space for work and play and enjoy it day in and day out. But it's been a very, very interesting year for me personally. It's been a rough year, but I think 2026 is going to be awesome. So with that being said, I think I'm going to close out this podcast and this stream. Thank you guys so much for being with me for this nearly 2.5, 3 hour almost podcast. And I think 2026 is going to be a really fun year. Tomorrow, check the website. Because the website is being changed. I created a new website while I haven't been streaming. Got a lot of fun, cool stuff being pushed. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm reinvigorated over the course of the last couple of weeks here. So that's going to do it for me. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your night. Good, great, happy New Year's. Maybe I'll stream tomorrow. I have no idea. But yeah, we'll have a good time. Take care. God bless. And I'll see you in 2026.